Hey folks, welcome back to the podcast, the Evil Dungeon Master Universe podcast. I'm your host, Evil Dungeon Master Vince, and hopefully you're having a great day today. Sorry about the lack of podcasts lately. It's been a little bit hectic in my life as far as health issues with my back and everything like that. So a lot of times I'm in some pain. But anyway, you're not here to hear about me complain about that. You're here to talk about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So today I was flipping through the book and looking for things to talk about. And it reminded me of the time of when we were doing some downtime in the taverns. We were playing a campaign, and my group wanted to do a few things in town, and they wanted to wait for some armor to be built. And I shouldn't say built, specifically made for them. The characters had some downtime because they had to do some research. It was one of those things that I didn't want to just hand wave and be like, yeah, the time went by. I wanted them to actually do something and get involved with the town. So they spent some time in the taverns, talking to people, listening to rumors and stuff like that, trying to gather up information for their next adventure while they were waiting for certain things to be done. And one of the things was they were gambling. One of the characters was had a vice of gambling, and he specifically picked that because he wanted to have something that was just different, and he wanted to have a gambling problem. So why not? So the AD&D book has a section in Appendix F on gambling, and Gary gave us a bunch of different games starting on page 215, and you'll be familiar with just about every one of them, pretty much, yeah. The first game is basically craps. The shooter wins the first roll 2d6 on a 7 or 11 and loses on a 2, 3, or 12. Otherwise, the shooter rolls until the number first rolled is rolled a second time, a win, or a 7 is rolled or loss. Shooters bet before the rolling, as others may. Side bets may be made there, blah blah blah. You have some odds, and then he has some odds listed down below. And craps is an interesting game. When I worked at the casino, this is one of the games that we kept a close eye on because of people cheating, and not necessarily because of the dice. It was mostly people cheating when pulling bets off if they lost, or trying to put bets on the table when they won when the dealer wasn't looking. That's generally why they have, when it gets busy, they generally have two people standing there in the pit. And and everyone's like, oh, it's because of the dice. No, it's not really. It's not because of the dice. It's mostly the other players seeing who's going to cheat or not. And the main thing you do when you're watching a craps table, and we're not always, and surveillance is not always watching these card games. Yeah, they're all being recorded, but not always live view. You only really live view a game when you are uh, suspicious of something or you get a call about something. Then you live view things or go back and watch footage. But people with craps would generally try to cheat by pinching bets and things like that. By pinching a bet, meaning pulling their bet back when the dealer is not looking. And when it's a lot of people there and it's a big crowd, it's possible to do it if you're slick enough. Again, that's why they have two people standing there generally when it's a large crowd of people. And they generally will have surveillance watching it too. But yeah, it's here nor there. So you can play craps, and then there's a game of horse. The first roller is determined by whatever means desired. 5d6 are rolled. 5d6 are used. 6 is high, 1 is low. Lowest to highest hands, basically you just compare against each other after you bet, and the winner becomes the boss and gets the pot. Then there's knuckle bones, which is kind of like craps. Allows a second roll of the dice with I don't understand knuckle bones, but again, this is a crap type game, but the object is to score the highest total. A variant allows a second roll of the dice by the first shooter, retaining none or all of them if he or she desires, but then all other players are entitled to do the same. Winner rolls first. So the highest pretty much is win. It's not really a variant of craps at all. There's a slot game variant in here. I guess Gary decided he was going to do a slot game, so you can play slots. Roll 3d6, one roll only, the wager being made prior to the roll. The table below is weighted in favor of the house, of course. You may, of course, devise your own tables. So, this one, basically, you're rolling 3d6, and you're comparing on the chart lemon, orange, bar, bell, plum, cherries. And he has kind of a chart here on the left-hand side. It doesn't really explain it. You have to kind of figure it out by looking at it. On the left-hand side of this little chart here, or table, it goes 661, 662, 663, 664, and it tells you what the payout is of it. And the sixes would represent what, like a cherry. Fives would be plums. Fours would be bell. 3 would be bar. Obviously, getting 666 on the dice pays 36 to 1, which is the big jackpot. Okay. And then there's a Zowie slot variant using 3d8 instead of 3d6. This adds on any given combination, and paying anywhere from 1 to 216 or 1 to 512. Payoffs are as followed, and it does the same thing, the exact same thing, adding anchor and crown to the now thing here listed. If you really want to play a slots game, go ahead. I could see if you're playing solo or something like that, that might be an interesting thing to kill some time or whatever. I don't know. Then we get a dice racing game. Use a checkerboard. 4 players maximum place their tokens on alternative rows. The object is to move the token to the end of the board sideways 1, and then back on the adjacent file in the first row. A roll of d6 determines the number of spaces each player moves. Okay. So basically, it's just a track. You put your token on it, roll d6. That's how many spaces you move. Person who gets to the finish line is the winner after you bet how much they won in the beginning. In between is an interesting game, I thought, which is roll 3d20, 2 white and 1 of a different color. The player must roll in between the 2 white dice with the colors die. Equaling a number is a loss. If the 2 white dice equal each other, the loss is automatic. Odds are always 5 to 2 before the dice are cast. Note, a crooked house might point 11 sides of the black 9 die and only 9. Oh, I see. Okay. They might favor the dice a certain way. I see. Then we get into more traditional games like 21. Obviously, everybody knows how to play 21. If you don't know how to play 21, it's 2 cards, and you try to get as close to 21 without going over as possible. Face cards are worth 10, and you're betting against the dealer, and you can determine the odds. Blah, blah, blah. Of course, it's, favored to the house. So there's a high-low is another one. Player gets 2 face cards down prior to dealing some stake is placed in the pot. After looking at the cards, each player turns 1 up, and the player with the highest card bets. Each player has the option of changing his or her up or down card for a fresh one from the deck. This takes place 3 times going around the table with a betting interval after each round. A 2 is low and ace is high. That's usually the opposite. Ace is usually low. Anyway, the object is to have the highest hand or pair on down to a 2 to 3, lowest hand possible, followed by a 2 to 4, 3 to 4, blah, 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 blah. High and low hands split the pot equally, add money going on high. Other gambling games can be devised. And so anyway, it reminded me of a gambling game that I had made up for them in town. It was called Mug Toss. Now, it may be a little familiar, some of the rules, but basically you need a designated target area. There are several empty mugs, or you can use small cups or whatever. And this is in game. Everybody bets a certain amount of gold coins or silver or copper, whatever you want to bet, for the winner. So everyone says, "Oh, I'm going to throw in 10 silver." Okay, so it's 30 silvers the pot. Okay, so you put the target area 10 to 15 feet away, and this is obviously in game. And I will explain the mechanics after explaining the game how it works, because it's kind of interesting. Characters take turns tossing their mug into the target area. Each character can take 3 tosses to try and land their mug in the area. Now you could either say they just pick up the same mug or they just have 3 mugs. I usually just say there's 3 mugs. Players score points based on where the mug lands. Inside the target area is 3 points. Close to the edge of the target area is 1 point. Outside the target area is 0 points. Now, what you're doing is you're totaling your points up each column, kind of like when you're throwing darts or something like that. For every mug that lands outside the target area, the character must take a shot of whiskey and add 2 coins to the pot. That's their penalty. For every mug that lands close to the target, the character must take a large swig of their ale. So if they're drinking ale, whatever drink, they must take a large drink of it. And there's a reason for this, and I'll explain. After 5 rounds, the player with the highest score wins the pot. Okay, so we're doing 5 rounds, 15 pretty much throws here, it looks like. So the throwing mechanics are use a d20 plus dex bonus, the target number being of 15. Okay, 12 to 14 counts as close. Now, you could change the target number to whatever the hell you want for your game. And you can make it lower, you can make it higher, but generally anything that's within a couple points under it is considered close. Now, obviously, with drinking, you have to take into account what's going to happen to the character as he's drinking. Now, a simple way I've done it is, and I don't really care that people are going to be like, well, I can hold alcohol better than the next guy. I don't really care. On the second shot of whiskey, you get a -2 to your dexterity. The third shot, -3, and so on and so forth. Ale or drink of choice, every 2 swigs, you get -2 on your dexterity, and then, -3 after blah, blah, blah. I had actually done some optional rules that players can have their characters kind of bet on the side with each other. Like, John is going to next throw. 1 coin says he doesn't hit the target, or 1 coin says he gets close, things like that, so they can bet on the side and for a little side action, so to speak. Now, there is one other rule that I didn't say anything about, but if you actually roll and you get a 1, you actually break your mug when you hit the ground. So when you break your mug, you not only get no points, you get -1 point. And you have to take a shot of whiskey and a swig of ale at the same time. Well, not the same time, but just one after the other. So, yeah, the object is not to break the mugs. When you get a natural 20, didn't really matter to me. The negative is what I was looking for. But that's the mug toss game, and after 5 rounds, usually you're generally going to be sloshed if you're not hitting that target number. So the more you drink, the more you're going to miss that target, obviously. And it becomes a fun game, seeing if you can actually roll the number. Obviously, characters will figure out ways to cheat. And I had one player character that when they were entertaining or they were trying to rip off a noble, they were working with the bartender of the inn and said, I will split money with you. And they were like, okay. So he goes, when we serve the drinks, make sure mine is basically the equivalent of non-alcohol or water or whatever. Make the ale. Obviously, the mugs weren't clear, so the guy didn't know. So he was doing that, and he never got drunk, even though the noble did get drunk. They never did figure it out because he was just so drunk he didn't care, and he was a noble with a lot of gold. So yeah, it was just something that they did. But yeah, there's different ways to cheat this game. Obviously, you could figure it out on your own. If you're interested in this, I guess I could try to put this in the notes. I don't know. Maybe a lot to put. I'll put it on my website. How it is done for the mug toss game. Tell me what you think about gambling in your game. Have you invented other things? I know I've invented a bunch of games. I may put this in a document and put it up in my my Ko-Fi store for you. That's ko-fi.com/theevildm. The Evil DM is my website. Ask the DM at theevildm.com is my email address. where you can contact me and talk to me and yada, yada, yada. Anyway, I'm going to head out. Keep it original. Keep it old school. Good night, and God bless everybody.